and an implementation plan of how this report is going to be implemented. In other words, what will be the priorities? What will be number one? What will be number two? How easy is it to do that recommendation or implement it? What impact will it make? Easy to do, higher impact. And of course, that includes the costs. So the costing of this whole thing, what will it take the taxpayer to save lives of the people in the taxi industry, to reduce crime, particularly murder and all other serious crimes perpetrated in the taxi industry, because these types of crimes in the taxi industry also, as we have seen in KZN, they also spill over into many other areas. So to that extent, we will develop an implementation plan. This implementation plan, when we develop it, we will engage the taxi industry. We will get input from the minister, from all stakeholders, but there will be an implementation plan. All what we are doing today is to release the report. We will come back to you about when will what be done, time, and how will that release happen, which is time and space. So that is a very important point to make. I did say that I want to talk about a matter that the Commission has raised, which is part of what we will engage moving forward, about taxi ranks and malls. I must say that one of the issues we're going to look at is the fact that we have got malls or property developers who build malls without making provision for taxi ranks. That is unacceptable. That is going to have to end, and we are going to engage with them. We have got malls where the people that use public transport, particularly taxis, are dropped outside. They have to cross roads, and there are massive parking bays that are even empty most of the time. And we believe this also is a serious matter, because the overwhelming majority of the people that use taxis are the working into. The other point I just want to conclude by, the last one, is, remember in Gauteng, we are currently finalizing, and we will announce in due course, the Gauteng Transport Authority, which is currently led by the Mr. Jack van der Merwe as the founding CEO, and of course with the GMA running as the board to constitute a new board. We have completed the processes. We just put in the final touch-ups and will announce the names, including representatives of municipalities. This is the transport authority is going to be dealing with managing demand and supply for transport in the province. That means planning of transport. It's going to look at planning by municipalities, by the province, and I think we are also ahead on that matter. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this report builds into our concept of growing Gauteng together through smart mobility and making sure that we have a province in which public transport is efficient, safe, integrated, reliable, and gives the commuter the best level of comfort. With that, on behalf of our provincial government, I release to all the people of our province the report on the Commission of Inquiry into the minibus taxi type service violence, fatalities and instability in Gauteng province. Report ye ke a lena badudi ba Gauteng, re fa lena wa releasing it to you. And thanks to you, to the media. We must also thank you. Without you, report will now make it easy. We must thank you as the media. Really have done a good job with Kwena. Where's Kwena Mohabelo? Who was the spokesperson of the commission. We must also thank him very much. I don't know where he is. Oh, he's not here today. Yes, please convey to him that we thank him for having worked with the media. And HOD, I can't thank the fish for swimming. HOD, Theo, can I hand over to you and to the HOD to take us forward? But otherwise, thanks a lot. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, MEC. And thanks, colleagues. I know the report was a bit on the longer side of things, and we couldn't cut corners on this one. Let me apologize also to those who are joining us online. I know there was a problem with the sound at the beginning. We profusely apologize for that. Now, those who are joining us online, if you have any questions that you want to ask to the panel here, you can please text or WhatsApp 082-719-6404. That's 082-719-6404. I've got questions already that have been sent by some of the colleagues who are joining us online, but I will allow the colleagues here who want to raise some questions to the panel. By show of hands, we will recognize you. You will then introduce yourself, the organization from which you come, and then we will try our best to answer all your questions. Now, MEC from EWN, Tando Kubega, has sent a question already. She wants to know, if I can get to Tando very quickly. She wants to know, are there any findings against police or findings linking police to the taxi violence that we're seeing in Gauteng? Are there any findings linking the police to the violence that we see in Gauteng? Now, I don't see any hands. Are there any hands on the floor? I recognize you. You can go ahead. Linda, you can go ahead, sir.
Aviwem Dila from ENCA. MEC, this report really raises a myriad of issues that talks to the taxi industry being a law upon itself. I mean, these issues have been ongoing, just merely being highlighted now. I might say it's just a bit disappointing to hear that now you'll only be engaging in conversations. I was hoping to hear concrete plans that would talk to what needs to be done. I mean, these issues have been there for a while. The issues of killings, the reversing, all of these issues. I'm hoping to hear more concrete plans from government side. And just to add to my colleague Linda Mnisi's question, what's your take on the associations? Should they be disallowed and government going in forward and having a firmer grip in the industry?
Thank you so much, colleagues. MEC, I'll just allow you and the panel to deal with the three questions that we have, or the questions that we've received from the three colleagues.
Yeah. We've invited the colleagues that were ready to win this work, and they are here, they've came, whilst the commission is effectively done with its work. And I think it will be good to hear from them. Let me allow them to make remarks, to answer your questions, and to engage you on some of the issues you have raised. They will reintroduce themselves, and then they will also say what work were they doing, each one of them, and then they will engage with, because this report, as the HOD said, it's a report issued by the Commission, we didn't tamper with it, is as is. Although now it is our report because the Commission has handed it over to us. We are now the authority on the report. But I think the gentlemen are here, and I'll hand over to them. Let's sanitize, and then let's move the, I've learned the skills of handling this. Okay, it's only one. I don't know if this is, of course people can hear you, but continue. Yeah, you can.
Okay. Thank you very much, Anise. My name is Lungile Mabeke. I've been one of the commissioners in the commission. As the HOD indicated when he was introducing us, I'm an attorney, and I'm also a public transport law specialist. I think the choice of me being part of the commission was, in fact, the choice of the people indicated the intention of the province to actually deal and give credibility to the commission itself. And just before I deal with one or two of the questions that have been asked, in line with what the MEC has indicated, just to make a few remarks. Firstly, the Commission thanked the media for their cooperation, especially in the in-camera hearings. You know, most of the hearings of the Commission took place behind closed doors. And fortunately, the cooperation of the media led to a situation where the Commission did not need to go and defend itself in court because certain media houses wanted to come in. You know, that's very important to mention. And that decision by the media houses saved lives, because today we are able to talk about a report. Secondly, I'd also like to mention that the Commission did issue interim reports. There is this is the main report. There are interim reports that the Commission issued on specific matters. Perhaps the MEC would be in a position to talk to those interim reports if it's necessary. And thirdly, when the Commission started, the media asked a question, I think it was in November in 2019, as to what is going to be the difference this commission is going to make in the light of a number of investigations that have apparently taken place before, including commissions, where nothing happened. Judge Shongwe was the chairperson of the commission, kept that in mind as we were dealing with the commission. And the nature and the structure of the report of the commission has taken into consideration the challenges that arose as a result of some of the reports that even us as the commission could not even access to. There are people who knew of the reports, but nobody knew where the reports were. So we couldn't even find the reports of the investigations that took place before. But in the light of some of the insinuations that were actually given by some people as to the reasons as to why those reports were not made public, we have structured this report in such a way that its disclosure, it's being made public, does not lead to any person being killed or endangered just because there's a report. You will notice that in the content of the report. So in essence, the way the report is written it's a strategic approach to make the report effective without exposing any person who participated in the process of the report. Thank you. I think I'll stop there for now, and then I'll give to Mr. Simang.
Thank you very much, MEC and colleagues. My name is Hlula Msimang. I'm not sure why the MEC thought I should be part of this commission. I'll leave that for him to explain. But anyway, I just wanted to refer to the issue, or to respond to the question around the issue of findings against the police, and if any of them were linked to the violence. I think the issue of law enforcement in general became one of the key components of the work of this commission, and indeed it consumed a lot of our time. For many reasons, one of which is that people have been murdered, and it takes the police to solve and resolve those crimes. But also, there are a lot of enforcement issues that are causes or contribute to the ongoing violence. So law enforcement in the province includes not just the South African Police Services, but also the various municipal and traffic police. And all of them have a role to play in enforcement of the law to prevent the ongoing taxi violence. Indeed, we found that there were several problems, amongst which were that some of the agencies were actually not enforcing any of the laws, and they gave us a lot of reasons why that was not happening. But I must say that all of them admitted upfront that they've not really been up to task in relation to the issues related to taxi violence. None of them said to us, we are doing a good job. They all admitted that they could do better. They all came here and said they have shortcomings, they understand it, and they were very upfront in telling us what those shortcomings were. So I thought it's important to make that point. But yes, it did become clear that the police were involved in some of the issues in different ways. Firstly, for instance, there were allegations, and these were made by very senior people representing the mother bodies of the associations, who said that some police officials are involved in the industry by means of being operators and owners of taxis, which is against the law. There are ongoing investigations around those issues to try and isolate those of the police officers who are owners and operators. It did become clear also as we're proceeding that many of those who are owners and operators are not, or their hand, let me put it this way, their hand is hidden. In other words, they operate through third parties or other arrangements, which then hide their involvement in the industry. And it becomes very difficult in those instances to unmask them. But we were assured that a lot of work is going on in that regard. So that's the first area of involvement. What that also says to us, or said to us, was that then it is then possible that as operators and owners, they are also involved in the ongoing violence. Indeed, when the South African Police Services interacted with us, there were instances where state-issued firearms were found to have been involved. in some of the acts of violence. There were not many, but there were such reports, and a lot of work is being done to link those to the people involved. There are also instances where law enforcement officials were involved or are involved in bribery and extortion. In other words, one of the reasons why there are so many illegal operators out there, one of them, not the only one, is that a lot of them often get away because they pay bribes to police officials, you know. And then as a result, we have a lot of saturation in some of the routes, and that is one of the causes of violence. So yes, if I may say, there were instances where, through the various ways I've explained, where the police were involved, or are implicated or linked to the violence. The South African Police Services, not a task team. There's a big difference there. And we applauded that initiative because, as you will see, one of our recommendations was that such a unit should be formed. It must be capacitated properly. It must have, men and women who have the required skills and experience to investigate these cases of violence, so that all the dockets that we have spoken of in our report are finalized, but more importantly, that any other case of taxi violence that occurs is properly investigated and that there is successful prosecution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioners. There's questions that were directed to the department, MEC. I hope you can cover those before we go to the next batch of questions.
Yeah, no, I was going to do exactly that. Let me start with a question that has just been answered, and thank you very much for your... and there's part E called law enforcement agencies. Very comprehensive with respect to the question that Kubeka was asking is there. So the answer is yes. Let me share with you some of the points that are made in the report that I think directly speak to the question. There's a part 5 in this section that in part E, which says conflicted law enforcement officials. And I hope that is the correct question about findings on the police role in the tax industry. And then it says that perhaps it is prudent to address the thorny issue of the real or perceived conflict of interest of law enforcement officials very early in this chapter. And it states, the report says, Section 13D of the National Land Transport Act states that an official in law enforcement and his or her immediate family must not have any direct financial or business interest in the public transport sector. There is a commonly held view that law enforcement is highly conflicted, which explains why it has been ineffectual in dealing with a taxi-related conflict. Some even go further to believe that some of the weapons used in the violence are issued by the police themselves. This view has been reinforced by the fact that in some of the incidents of violence, state-issued rifles and pistols were used, and some of these have been confiscated from suspects. There are also numerous examples where criminals in the industry have been able to avoid arrest due to forewarning, which could only have come from elements in the law enforcement agencies who are co-conspirators. I hope I'm still reading your report. Yes. It is the responsibility of all law enforcement agencies to ensure that none of their employees is in violation of this law. Taxi owners are registered in the systems OLAS and RES, and checking all employees against the list on the RAS and OLAS system should be the first and logical exercise to determine which law enforcement employees are owners and direct participants in the minibus taxi type service industry in contravention of the law. Now, this is very important. The Commission had only 2 instances where the SABC and JMPD attempted to investigate members who are contravening this law. In both instances, these investigations have stalled for reasons that were not provided to the Commission. No other law enforcement agency in the province has interacted with PRI or any other structure at national level which can assist with such investigations to establish which of their members are taxi owners and operators in the minibus taxi service industry. During their submission to the Commission, the senior representatives of the EMPD confessed that they were not aware of this legal requirement, and the TMPD has never undertaken such an investigation. It proceeds, all the law enforcement agencies that testified in front of the Commission shared a similar view that investigating ownership through the PRI is in all respects an exercise in futility, as many employees of law enforcement agencies who own or participate actively in the industry do so through third parties, and their involvement and ownership is hidden. Both the leadership of GNTA and Santago shared a similar view in their testimony, but claimed it is widely known in the industry that some operators are proxies for law enforcement officers. To conclude this part, it was, however, very apparent to the Commission that this matter has not received the attention it should among the law enforcement agencies across the board, and that there are no systems established to identify who participates in the industry in contravention of Section 13 of the National Land Transport Act. Also apparent is that illegal operators and so on and so on and so on. So there's a whole, there's even a dedicated number, 14 South African Police Service, all of them, they're here. So the answer to the first question is comprehensive on law enforcement, adequate part. So as I said, we have summarized. But you can see the Commission has really done an excellent job on that point. I had to take time on that matter because it is very much important. So when we say we summarized, we really summarized. Now to Linda. Ndate Mnisi, let me, you talk about the regulating authorities, bodies, and government departments that were almost, or whether they, I think they were caught napping, and of course what happens to the associations, and whether the recommendations are binding. Now, the recommendations are in the report. We, as the provincial government and the department in particular, have to implement the recommendations. We must implement the recommendations. For me, the recommendations are there, and we must develop an action plan to implement them, because these recommendations are important. We can't set up a commission of inquiry and disregard its recommendations. That will be waste of money of the taxpayer. If there's any recommendation that causes challenges, we must be able to justify why we must modify. There must be a justification. But we can't, it's like getting a legal opinion and differing with it without getting an alternative legal opinion. So this is our work, we welcome it. We will engage. If there are matters that require us to be looked at in this way or that way, we will be very clear on that issue. Taxi associations, the report does not say do away with taxi associations. No. I didn't read it to say that. I read the report to be saying taxi associations are associations to promote interest of members. So I think members have got right to organize. All what the association is saying is that, all what the Commission's report is saying, as I understand it, is in the findings of the business taxi type business model, the way I understand and interpret it, and the most practical way to deal with it, is that we must make sure that taxi associations promote the interests of members, and they don't double up as business entities. Because once they double up as business entities, they're taking a different form. And these issues of illegal collection of money through the bucket, people not going to elections, and all those issues are matters that should be improved. But I did not read it to say do away with taxi associations. So taxi associations are there to promote the interests of members, and all what is required is to make sure that they are for the purpose for which they were established. If the taxi industry want to get involved in business model, in business activities, taxi associations may not be appropriate corporate entities to do that. And maybe that's how I'm interpreting it. I hope I'm not far from how I'm understanding it, but my understanding is not that taxi associations must be done away with. The purpose for which they were created should be clearly clarified and should stick to that and not do what was not initially intended. And they must not be law unto themselves. I agree with the Commission completely. So there's no doing away with the taxi associations. When we caught napping as departments over the years, I think the report indicates that, and I am on record having said that, and I can say it without any fear of contradiction, that in this report, actually, let me use the Commission's report, so that there's authority to back up the point I'm making. I may not find the page quick, but I can tell you, this Commission says there was an investigation done some years back in 1980, in the 1980s, where there was a commission whose name I'll find out, and the commission indicates that that investigation, which was almost similar to the work that has been done, it actually contributed to complete deregulation and neglect of the taxi industry. And coming into 1994 and into the period of the new government, the taxi industry was actually left to itself. Because the apartheid government believed you did not need mass transport in white suburbs, such as taxi industries. And it was the basis of complete neglect of the taxi industry left out to itself. And although there were various attempts to support it, but the reality of the matter is the taxi industry has been left to itself for quite some time. So I will say, I think what is good is to say we now have the best way forward on what needs to be done, and I think we should focus on that. Yeah, this was called the Welgemoot Commission of 1981, and it led to the Transport Deregulation Act of 1988. The Welgemoot Commission led minibus taxi operators to fend for themselves without any support from the government at the time. Because it stated that it was unjustifiable to have a mass-based transport system in historically white urban and developed areas. I'm using this example to answer your question to say there's a historic peer issue here of just this model of the taxi industry that has evolved even during that time, which some aspects of it are still alive today. That's why you have the law of the jungle in the taxi industry. I mean, it is just incorrect. I myself, even before the commission was established, I found it incorrect that the taxi associations are running the industry basically, but they are not regulated. I had to go to court every time I want to dissolve an association. I must apply to court to give me the power to dissolve, because there's no part in the law that allows that. Where they abuse money, everything, I had to go to the courts. So I'm just saying to you, this non-deregulation of the taxi association, the commission is spot on the matter. Did we always know about these issues? Obviously, I mean, we can't set up a commission of inquiry on matters that, so that's why we're able to set up terms of reference. We needed now a much more scientific, tested, verified information. We have it now. And this is the best way forward. The commission now helps us to know where to go. No longer in the dark, no longer here, there, in a very uncoordinated way, in a fragmented manner, touching this, touching that, without a clear plan. This is very powerful. This is great. This is excellent. We now know where to go. We don't have to be looking back. We must move forward. So all I'm saying to you is that now we have a report. We are well armed with a report to confront the future. ENCA, I hear you about a bit of disappointment. Where are concrete plans? Now, a good point, because I have said we now have the report. Step number 1, release the report. Step number 2, develop concrete action plan. Now, your question is saying we should be having it by now. And I'm saying to you, it is step number 2. I don't think we are far apart. Let's do it based on the report and not do it on whims and wishes and speculation and searching in the dark. Let it be based on this. Here is it. Now, so we are together. That's what we are going to do. We also need to consult so that it's not an arbitrary imposed concrete plan. Otherwise, it won't be concrete. If we don't do it properly, there's a scholar, Karl Marx, who said, easy come, easy go. If we just put concrete and it's non-concrete, it don't take us anywhere. So we are together. We need concrete action plan. That's what the provincial government directed us as a department to do. And when are we going to do that? Let's hear the taxi industry. Because they are a critical stakeholder, we need to consult. Together with them, we will call you. Here is it. And this is how we're going to do it, and the cost. So I just wanted to say the point you are raising, we are together. We share that point. It's just that for us is step number 2. And we will come back to it. And of course, the question about associations linked to the earlier question, I think I've dealt with that. I think, Theo, have I left anything?
No, MC, I think you've covered all the questions.
More than you bargained for. Okay.
Yeah, in fact, I'm hoping that we won't have too many questions, but I've got one from Jacaranda. The question relates to, I've looked at Gaupalelu's question from Jacaranda. He's given us a whole 5 questions, but almost all of them have been answered by the commissioners and yourself, except the one question that he asks, and I quote him, he says, how many people have been killed due to taxi violence? And did the commission reflect on this? Commissioners, I don't know if it's a question that you'll be able to answer as I'm taking other hands. And colleagues, please note that my panel will be available after this if you want one-on-ones. But I'll take the last batch of questions before I allow for you to do a breakaway with the panelists. I see you, Tsepo. There's a second bite. Is there another one? Okay, Mr. Pakhan, you can go ahead, sir.
Thank you. My name is Sepo from SABC Radio News. MEC, I just wanted to find out, in terms of the Gauteng government officials that are allegedly linked or involved in alleged acts of fraud with regard to the issuing of licenses, permits, and all sorts of things. This thing has been raised, I mean, over the years. It's not something new. What has the department done to investigate, maybe internally, some of those officials who own taxis themselves? What has the department done to uproot those implicated or linked or found to be involved in these nefarious activities? Thanks.
Thanks, Tsepo. Mr. Minister, I recognize you.
Linda Mnisi again. During the commission, we heard how some of the perpetrators would hide in places like hostels. So I'm wondering if traditional leaders will also be engaged or have been presented with this report in terms of them and their leadership in these hostels and the role that they play. We understand that they know the ins and outs of these hostels. So at what level are they going to be engaged?
Okay. Those are the questions. Let me also remind colleagues that we have issued out the full report as well. MEC, I'll reassure you that we didn't kill any trees in doing so. So colleagues can use their online platforms to access both the abridged summary of the report and the final report. Let me hand over to my panel. I'm going to start with the commissioners, MEC, just to answer the question that Gaupalelwi, and Gaupalelwi is not a he, she is a she. I apologize for that. Let me ask the commissioners to just deal with the question of how many people have been killed in taxi violence.
The question of how many people have been killed, the Commission has not been able to answer that question. And the reason why that's the case is because, as I think it was indicated, that not every person who wanted to come before the Commission and testify was able to come and testify. You know, the limitation in terms of the time frames. In fact, the Commission still had a number of witnesses that wanted to come forward, especially from the taxi industry. And those people who did come and testify, there is quite a number of people who were mentioned by different witnesses as people who have died within their associations or as within groups that are called concerned groups. In fact, varying figures. In fact, in some instances, in one instance, there was a figure of 81 people who have died over a certain period, of which most of those cases are not cases that even police have dealt with, you know. So, but on those cases that the Commission was able to get from the SAPS, there's plus minus 600 that were closed cases that the investigators of the Commission managed to access. And there's plus minus 500 of active cases of which Mr. Msimang mentioned in terms of the Commission hoping that those cases would be properly dealt with now that the SAPS has established a taxi unit that is meant to be properly resourced. But definitely there are many people. In fact, even during the course of the Commission itself, you know, there are a number of other people who are outside the cases that the commission was able to access who have been killed. In fact, even some people who appeared before the commission were subsequently killed. So it's not possible to determine the exact number, but because of the, as I say, because of the limitations, the constraints that the commission has been working under. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. I'm going to hand over to the MEC, a safe mic.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Theo. I heard you talking about killing trees. That trees were not killed. So, yeah, the word killing a taxi violence, read an industry could be very worrying. No, that's just on a lighter note. HOD will explain to me what you meant. But I was just worried about killings. Given the matters we are dealing with, that even trees are affected now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, on a much more serious note, the question that Tsepo asked, but before that, I just want to make the point that I'm very much pleased that we know how many cases are still unresolved. 505. That is a very important matter. But I think to the commission, I think as we work, it will also be just very good to know, out of these 505, does it include case closed, file closed, without, of course, these are still active files, but what about those cases where, files were closed because of what you have found, collusion, bribes, and all that? I think this is a matter that we need to look into as well. Lack of evidence when we know that there could have been this and that. But 505 is a lot of cases that still have to be resolved. We now know where to go, what files to look for, and why were they not resolved? So I think as that, and they are saying those cases must be worked on. I just wanted to make that point with respect to the last question. But for the issue here of government officials that the report is saying we must act upon, your question is, what have we done about them? And you used for nefarious activities. I'll also ask HOD for this very complex concept, a term you have used for its meaning. Therefore, if there are cases where officials were acted upon, it would have not been in the light of this report, but I'm not, at this point, we have not yet acted on the recommendations of the report. The report says we must take action, and including holding them criminally liable. So we will rely on the evidence gathered by the commission to know now the home bodies who Jacob Mamavulo has done a wrong thing, this is it, and must be held criminally liable. So the commission's report will help us to do that. If it means further forensics to corroborate more evidence based on what the commission would have said, we will do that. But that part is going to be implemented. We have to clean the rot in the department. When I first came into the department in the taxi of violence in Soweto, Nandu, and Wata, they all said they have been made to fight by government officials. And I never understood what it means. And of course, there's also another investigation that I must also report to the people of the province that was run in parallel with this to look at the actual issues pertaining to the permits themselves, but it was more looking at Joburg, and of course, we're considering expanding it to all other areas to give us these finer details. So, Tsepo, the long and short of, to reply to your question, is we will now use the report to take action against the officials. The truth is we have not yet taken action because we are yet to implement the report. But I can assure you, no stone will be left untouched, or no person will be left attended to for nefarious activities. This must be serious, nefarious. We will get to the bottom of that. At this point, not yet, but it's an immediate action because we can't continue to have officials that are implicated roaming around the department, including those who were once in the department and are implicated. We are going to look for them. We will find them, and we will announce once we have made progress in that area. The issue of engaging is Dintuna in the hostels, as the report correctly says. The report also supports the point that hostels remain hideouts for the Izinkabi. The Nkabis are the ones that are hired and rented to kill and have actually become an industry, eating the taxi industry. So the report is saying, and I could find a specific section, it says that law enforcement must conduct regular raids in those hostels. So we will need to engage with those that reside in the hostels to know that hostels are a hideout for killers, and therefore that period has to end. And this law enforcement agency that's been talked about, depending on how the provincial government, at what point it deals with that matter and how. But we need a dedicated, as the report says, not once off at that time, but dedicated, focused raids in hostels. Making Kabis not have a place to hide. Be there, check, verify that in Kabi. So consultation is going to be very important. It's going to definitely come because we will have to engage them on this matter. We will need their cooperation. We will need them to help us as well, so that we root out, because they also get affected by this. The commission report indicate that you also have rivalries and fights, that some of them are not necessarily directly in the taxi industry, but are an escalation, are consequential. So we have seen in KZN, the traditional leaders being killed, and there were media reports that they are scared actually, and that the modus operandi is the same of hiring murderers and cabbies that hide out in hostels. So it's an important traditional leadership. It's also a victim of this modus operandi of killings. So it is an important stakeholder in the hostels that we'll have to look into. So that concludes, we have answered all questions.
Indeed, MEC,
and
you
we
did.
are available to answer more questions if there are any.
Let me take this moment, MEC, and thank you and the panel, the commissioners. Thanks so much for answering all the questions. Colleagues in the media, thank you so much. For those who are joining us online, thank you so much. This brings to the end our press briefing. We are available. You have our numbers. MEC is available for those who are here. And the link, I believe, will make available even after this press briefing. But let me thank you so much. HOD, let me not forget you. Thank you so much for holding the fort as well. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.